Okay, I've now taken off all the guides, and that just leaves me then to concentrate on the black. I'm going to have to take all this varnish off, so it's going to be a bit of a labour intensive job just to scrape all that off. So I'm going to set that aside to do at my leisure. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And I just want to show you what I've got here now. So there's my pile of guide wraps and some of the finish that's come off of that. So I've now laid out the guides. Okay, so there they all are. They're just going to need a bit of cleaning up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my Dremel tool, and then on the end of there I've got a sanding disc. So I use the grade 60. You get about 6 of these in a pack. That's the SCA 411s. Okay, and the heads are sort of interchangeable, so you can take them off. And the one that I used previously, it lasts a fair bit of time, but eventually they just wear out, so you just have to replace them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the guide feet here. But as I mentioned earlier, my guide number 5 is just slightly bent. So that's this one here. And you can probably see that that's just woefully out of shape, so I just can't use that one. So I found a reasonable quality second-hand one off a rod that I've repaired before, taken those off, and that's, let's say, an exact copy of the original. So what I'll do is I'll just swap those over, because the one that's come off the rod, as I said, it's got a crack inside there and it's bent, so we can't use it, so we just need to get rid of that. Excuse me. And then I'll just replace that like for like, so that'll sit in there. So what I do then is I'll just clean up the guide feet. So what I'll do is I'll turn this on and I'll use my sanding disc. I wouldn't normally do this in the workshop where I'm doing my high build finish. It's just to show you. So where it's had high build and varnish on there before, you just need to clean up the guide feet just a little bit, just to take that down, and make sure you do both sides. And it just gets rid of any sort of rust that you might have on there as well. And also just be aware that underneath the guide foot you might just get a slight burr underneath there, so make sure you just do the bottom of that as well. I'll show you that, just to take that off so it doesn't dig into the rod. Okay, and then I'm just going to work my way down my guide feet and just do each one of those as I go, right the way down to the smallest. Okay, and then where you've polished that up on the guide feet and put a little bit of a point on there, you can use a little bit of black paint to obviously seal that back in, or some clear Bonder seal, let that set over time, and then you're ready to put those back on the rod. Okay, so what I use is the Dremel tool and 60 grade sort of wet and dry head, just to clean up those guide feet. Okay, I'll go through that whole process and then I'll come back to you. Hi there and welcome back. So what we've done is we've trimmed up all our guide feet, so we've just polished them using that Dremel tool and the abrasive disc there, that grade 60. Okay, so we've just taken those edges off, and make sure when you do this you haven't got any sharp edges on those guide feet, because if they're too sharp, then when you kind of put the thread on, it can snap it quite easily or cause it to fray, so just be aware of that. Okay, so we've done all of those. So what I do now is I coat these, because you don't want any discoloration or rust coming through, so just give them a coat. And I use this, it's like an enamel paint, it's a gloss one, it's just a Humbrol. You can use any type of paint really. It's a gloss number 21. Okay, so that's all we're going to do, is just put a little daub of this paint on each of those guide feet. Okay, and then we hang them up to dry. Okay, so just give that a little coat just to protect it. And it's enamel, so it's slightly better. It's good for metal finishes. Okay, and it does dry quite hard as well. And the key thing with this, of course, is making sure that it's dry. So that's the first one, so nice sort of coat on there, good coverage. Okay, doesn't need a second coat or anything like that. And then just hang them up to dry. So I'll just set up this little rig here. So it's just an old piece of fishing rod blank, and just send that down and hang it up to dry. So we're going to do each one. Just the tiniest blob of paint is sufficient just to coat the end. Okay, doesn't need a second coat. You know, you could probably use a metal based paint or a hammerite or something like that. Okay, they're all quite efficient. And what I do allow is that 72 hours for it to actually dry. Okay, because you want a nice hard shell on there, because it's obviously doing a job. It's protecting those guide feet and stopping any discoloration coming through into your threads. Okay, so plenty of drying time. You can apply a bit of heat to it, so if you want to put the dryer on it, you can do. Okay, quite therapeutic when we get to this stage. Okay, just hang them up to dry. As you can see, it's a labour of love. And a lot of our customers don't see this part of it, but if you want to do it properly, that's what you've got to do. Now, because they're second-hand guides, okay, they've been on the rod for quite a long time, don't forget to clean them up. So if there's any old epoxy on there, or dust and dirt and grime, then just make sure all that comes off. Okay, you want as best a surface as you can possibly get on these guides. Okay, so that's all we're doing. And what I'll do is, while they're drying, I'll just move into the next phase of the preparation. There we go. So that's the last one. There's only 6 guides on this rod anyway. So there we go, just up sort of close. Just coat the ends. Okay, and that's that bit done. There's a little bit of silver showing underneath, then just give that a little daub as well. And that is it. Don't forget to clean your brush up. I always like to reuse stuff in this workshop, so rather than throw it away, I always like to clean things so they're ready for next time. So there we go. So there's all my guides hanging up to dry. So that's that bit done. Put the lid back on. So as I say, while that's drying, I'm going to move back to the blank, the rod itself. So bring that back into play, and then what I'm going to be doing is now scraping off this lacquer coat that's already on this blank. So I'm going to do that meticulously. That's probably going to take about, I'd say, at least an hour to get all that off. So while they're drying, I'm going to move over to this and get that one prepared. And then once I've done that, so these are the shards that you can see coming off. If you can see those, they're sort of yellow bits of varnish, so it's really badly discoloured. So unfortunately, all that's got to come off. You can sand it down with wet and dry sort of graded paper, but I like to use a sharp knife. But again, you just got to be really careful when you're doing this that you don't actually damage the blank. Okay, and you can see there's shards of old varnish, you know, just coming off all over the place. And you can see that on the piece there. So it's all got to come off. Okay, so I'll concentrate on that. So I will be taking that down. Then I'll come back to you when I show you how to then prep the blank prior to putting on the Bondasil coat. Catch up soon.